Now, in continuing with our masterworks of museums of North America and Europe, we go back to the Asian Art Museum of San Francisco and we look at some of their very prominent sculpture. Now, on the HAR website, what we've done is we've selected uh, 8 pieces, which we think really highlight the quality of the collection, and just in order, numeric order of how they've been registered on HAR. The first is a very typical but a very beautifully carved stone pilgrim piece from Bodhgaya from about 1,000 years ago. It's Shakyamuni Buddha with the life story carved surrounding this small central figure. And these were very popular and very common apparently at the time because they've turned up in all kinds of other countries over the last 1,000 years, and they were just a popular takeaway from Bihar and the Bodhgaya temple. Now, the second is an Indian stone sculpture of really we have to kind of call it for sure it's an Avalokiteshvara. But even though the left hand is not in the appropriate modern gesture for Kasarpana, we kind of have to think that it is a Kasarpana Avalokiteshvara. The sky flyer coming out of the narrative, which can be found in Bhutan Tamche Khempa's History of Buddhism, but also I think it's in the later Taranata version. It's kind of an edited version or expanded version of Bhutan's history. Now, the third piece is a Swat Valley, early Kashmir. Absolutely wonderful metal sculpture of Avalokiteshvara in the thinking posture. Thinking posture generally has the right arm and right hand bent upwards, and so the hand is up towards the face of Avalokiteshvara, and the backside of the hand is always turned outward. And with his left hand, he's holding a very large, open, front-facing flower blossom, circular flower blossom, and that's the white lotus. Now, the fourth object is an absolutely stunning repoussé Nepalese figure of white Tara. Just a tremendous piece, very, very beautifully done. Most likely parts of it will be cast, but the main body and torso will be repoussé, along with the ornaments and attributes. Now, the fifth one is a Mongolian sculpture, and it's representing Shakyamuni Buddha, and it's just a simple, lovely example of Zanabazar style. The sixth object we're looking at is the Maharat Ganapati, one face, 12 arms, as a sculpture. Now, this one's a little bit more difficult to date and also to place. I mean, do we place it at Show Village below the Potala Palace in the 16th, 17th century, or do we maybe think that it's possibly a Qianlong piece with this very dark brown, ungilded color for the body of Ganapati, and then the lotus below is gilt, and the Torana behind, and then the face looks like it's cold gold is applied to the face. Regardless of any of this, this is for the subject of Maharat Ganapati. This is one of the top 3, 4, 5 pieces in the world. Absolutely stunning example of Maharat as a sculptural figure. Now, the seventh piece, moving to a different region entirely, is a standing bodhisattva figure, and it's Avalokiteshvara, and they have a word for it in China and in among scholars. But I think it's the word that they call it is a corruption of the term acharya. So it's Acharya Lokeshvara, and this particular style of standing Avalokiteshvara comes from Burma, Myanmar, and prior to that, it arose out of Sri Lanka. So it has a very long pedigree in terms of its iconography. And of course, the Dali kingdom was destroyed by Kublai Khan in the 13th century. So prior to the 13th century, this particular Dali sculpture had a long pedigree of travel. and development coming from south of India, South Asia, in Sri Lanka. Now, the final piece is another stonework from India, and it is more Kirkihar related. So it's dealing with a little bit Gangetic plain, but a little bit more to the west. And it's kind of a stunning piece as well. And what we have the Buddha, crowned Buddha. And he has some ornaments as well in a necklace. And then he's holding part of his robe in the right hand, upraised, palm outward. And the left is held downward, but again holding a bit of the robe. And this has been described in different ways by different people. But I actually prefer John Huntington's explanation that what the Buddha's meaning here, what the Buddha is intending to convey here, is that by holding up the robe in the right hand with the palm outward, and sometimes it's downward. I mean, that's not particular. The gesture is not particular. What is important here is the holding of the robe. And he's saying there is a way out of suffering. And then in the left hand, he's holding the robe, and he's saying, and the way is the teachings of Dharma and the Vinaya, the monastic code. So it's a very simple kind of meaning that there is suffering and there is an end to suffering, and the path to the end of suffering is the Dharma teachings of Shakyamuni Buddha. So this is really a lovely piece with a few side figures above and below. Now, other people might choose other sculpture. I think this is a great selection because it's really dealing with India, it's dealing with Kashmir, it's dealing with Nepal, Mongolia, Dali Kingdom, and possibly China. So we're dealing with so many different countries here that are represented by a truly fine collection of Himalayan art. So you can press like, you can subscribe, you can join HAR on Patreon, and you can also make a donation on the homepage of Himalayan Art Resources.